You called it Ryegrass month.
Yes, some people associate it with Oktoberfest, but if you're a ryegrass seed grower, you really need to have done some things already or do some things very soon for those crops, and things like putting the nitrogen on to really boost the tiller production away. If you haven't already done that, there doesn't seem to be any set rule. Some people put on something like 100 kgs per hectare per month for 3 months in a row. Others will dump on 300 kgs in one go if conditions are right, and the end result seems to be the same. So,
Yeah, the cost is the same as well.
yes, except that you're 3 times your application if you're paying a contractor to spread it on. So
Oh, that's the point.
that's the point. Yes, that's the point. That's the point.
So,
So,
what are the
yeah.
ideal conditions? You're talking about rain, or what?
Well, you obviously need with nitrogen, unless you're using one of the specialist ureas that will stand being put on in dry conditions and doesn't volatilise into the atmosphere. With urea, you definitely need probably a shower afterwards, ideally. You don't want it going onto wet, because sometimes nitrogen can stick to the leaf and actually burn a little hole in the leaf if it lodges in an axis and things like that. But certainly, a rain to activate it, and reasonable top growth as well.
Now, you've been an Aussie.
Yes, Rob, been over to Brisbane for the New Zealand Grain and Seed Trade conference, annual conference. And it's the first time we've gone offshore, and it was really, really good. And they had a great host of very, very good speakers over there, some New Zealanders and some Australians. And in some ways, they've got their act together and in front of us, and other ways, they're a little behind us in getting themselves organised. But certainly there were some very, very good speakers. We had New Zealand Trade and Industries Commissioner there from Melbourne, and he was really, really sharp, and we could be proud of him as our Trade Commissioner in Australia. Did a great job. Yep.
So, what can we learn from the Aussies?
Well, certainly we had a nutritionist there from their grain industry, a nutritionist who talked about the importance of grain to the human health. And she was a practicing nutritionist, and said, well, we basically, we hear all about this gluten and all these sorts of intolerances and things like that, but grain is still a very, very important part of our diet, and very good for bowel health, of course, as we know that, and a certain amount of fibre that comes from that is absolutely essential. So keep those grain intakes, not so much the processed and sugared varieties, which we all, of course, like, but certainly
you're talking white bread and things, aren't you, really?
Yes, or we're talking the brown bread and things like porridge and things like that.
Yeah.
They're all good.
As on the good side, rather.
On
than
the good side,
yes,
that's right.
Exactly.
Yes, indeed. So some interesting stuff there, and also their breeding programs over there. Looking at GE and the risks and options and possibilities there, but New Zealand and Australia have been tracking down the same track, but at the moment we've put the brakes on some certain things that the Australians haven't put the brakes on, and they're quite concerned that we may drift away and fall behind the world, basically, at our end. And so, yes, to sort of watch this space. We like to sort of have some people to work with, and the Australians are pretty
So you can
good.
hold hands with them.
Yes, indeed, and swap information. It's freely available for the good of mankind, basically, and there's not too much hidden stuff there, and collaboration.
Because it's interesting that FAR, who I know you champion, have got a foot into Australia as well.
Oh, absolutely, yes. They could see the benefits of being established in Australia, and joint collaboration and trials and things like that. And for instance, there's a rust nursery in Queensland that we can use. They have conditions, and stress some of our new ryegrasses out and test them for resistance to rust, and lots of little things like that they've got. Maybe they need some things that we've got, and vice versa, working together.
Aphids, those pesky little things.
Well, they're due back, Rob. You can just about look at your calendar and say, late October they'll be there, and just check your roses. That's the first port of call, and things like sow thistle and prairie grass. They're the first to succumb to aphid occupation. They must be their favourite foods, I think. And from there, until it gets too hot, they really build up very, very, very quickly on lots and lots of crops. And of course, they do a lot of damage and inject viruses into plants and things like that. So They are one of our planet's most pesky little insects.
Now, spraying, you've got to be careful to get it all.
Absolutely, Rob. If you're spraying a paddock, particularly for diseases, rusts and the things like that, and you miss a pocket in a field, that can be a ready infection source from not even having to travel in from other fields or be blown in by the wind or transported by animals. Right from within your crop can be a hot spot and a major reinfection source. So it can mean that you may even have to spray for one extra time in a season because the infection came from within the field. So get those GPSs right, drive straight to your GPS and don't miss, paint the pictures out, don't miss any areas because they can be costly.
And avoid drift.
Absolutely avoiding drift and to neighbours and other crops, sensitive crops, and there's various ways you can do it. Anti-drift agents can be put in the mixture. Using air induction nozzles are absolutely brilliant. They use two forms of hydraulics, not only the water but the air as well, and you can produce a larger droplet and still get coverage without it drifting away. When you're using air induction nozzles, you can slow down, you can lower your pressure, and you can lower your boom. So if you follow all those steps, you're very much into low drift or no drift.
Should we talk about reading the label? I mean, just on the off chance that somebody wants to.
On the off chance, well, even for farmers now to go purchase a chemical, and different retailers and different seasons stock a different trade name, and so you virtually have to come to grips with, oh, what have we got this year? It's like a fashion parade. You know, there's probably 6 or 7 or 8 generics available on the market. Now, are they the same strength? Are they the same formulation? Are they compatible? Will you block your nozzles? What will happen by changing? So be careful, read the label, think about it, think about not only price, but the strength of the product, its formulation, and whether you're buying glue in a pot that won't come out and won't dissolve, or whether it's a nice smooth formulation that doesn't block nozzles and everything else.
And the spray that you get a gift with purchase with is not necessarily the best one.
No, don't go for the ham with the purchase of the chemical. Yes, so really, some of them probably, most of them are pretty good, but there is some coming from some sources that are not wonderful, and
that aren't up to scratch.
And some companies do put a lot back into New Zealand agriculture. Others just import bulk drums and don't do trials and don't contribute too much.
This week's production tip.
Yes, Rob. A lot of farmers don't realise that there's an opportunity in a lot of crops to do a stale seed bed, either a rig loan or a roundup if you're very, very careful, by placing something like a window, a decent sized window in a frame. As soon as you've sown your crop, put that over the rows. Now you'll create a glasshouse environment, and under that window, if you look every day, you'll get not only the crop coming up, you'll get a whole host of weeds. So that will give you a snapshot of the weeds that are going to be in that paddock when you have to spray the whole paddock. And if you're very, very careful and you've put the window out there to create the glasshouse effect straight away and look at it every day, as soon as that crop comes up under the window, go and put a litre of Roundup over the whole paddock and you'll get a stale seed bed.
Dennis, thank you very much indeed.